All right, guys, today in front of me, we have the very first release of the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. This is the A123. This one comes in at 125.6 proof. Guys, this one needs no introduction, so we're just going to go ahead and get right into it. So without further ado, let's go. All right, guys, so each and every year, again, Elijah Craig puts out 3 different batches throughout the year, the A batch, the B batch, and the C batch. This one is the A123, the very first release from 2023. Again, comes in at 125.6 proof. Let's go ahead and get in the nose. Wow, so this one on the nose, again, kind of takes me back. This has... So this is a little kind of, for me anyway, this is kind of very off-profile Elijah Craig on the nose. So this one actually has a slightly kind of dusty note to it. Very, very faint, but it's definitely there further into the glass. Further away from the glass, I get a lot of vanilla. I definitely get a lot of kind of nuttiness on this one. But then there's also a really nice like brown sugar, and then there's like this slight hint of it's almost like a butterscotch. Very, very kind of like sweet nose on this one, but then also some of that nuttiness kind of, balances that out. Yeah, further away, there's definitely a butterscotch note on this one, which is not very typical for an Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. But then further into the glass, again, there's, you're starting to pull out some nuttiness. There's a slightly kind of dusty note to it. And then there's an interesting kind of oak aspect to this one, and that may be where it kind of pulls in some of that dusty on the nose. It's sweet, but yet it is kind of like tannic there on the nose. So it's like you get a little bit like some old oak, but then you also get like a sweet oak further into the glass as well. Again, further away, you get some of those vanillas, a little bit of that butterscotch kind of sweetness as you pull away from the glass. Further into the glass, gets a little darker, a little more earthy. Good nose. It's going to be out, guys. Cheers. That is just damn good. So, very different from the palate, or I'm sorry, from the nose into the palate on this one. There are similar, some of the aromas I was getting, come off, some of the flavors I get, but it is kind of different. So, on the front of the palate, I do get like a kind of like an oaky kind of brown sugar on the front of the palate. Middle of the palate, that's where you start to pick up a little bit of that nuttiness, some of that traditional kind of Heaven Hill profile on the mid palate, but yet it remains sweet all the way through. There's definitely some oak tannins on this one, not necessarily on the sweet side, definitely more on the like some of that older wood, but yet it still has like a sweet flavor from the rest of the flavors in this one. A little bit of oakiness again there following through into the back, kind of like a white peppery finish on this one. This is very kind of off profile of an Elijah Craig for me, but it's delicious. It is very, very good. And the flavors on this one hit very differently than what like a typical kind of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, where those flavors kind of hit on the palate. So it's kind of throwing me off a little bit. Yeah, again, I mean, that second sip changed a little bit. Still kind of, that off kind of profiled. Again, usually the A batches are very sweet. This one kind of lives up to that. There is definitely some sweetness to it. But then there is still like a darker side to this one. You still get some of that nuttiness across the center of the palate. And then, into the back, getting, there's definitely a nice chunk of pepper and a nice chunk of like some of that oak. Not the sweeter oak, the darker oak there on the back of the palate. Still kind of sweet up front. But the flavors on this one are just, they hit the palate a little different than what some of the last A batches. As a matter of fact, all the batches kind of hit. Typically you get a lot of similar notes with Elijah Craig, but this one's a little different. C922 was fantastic the way they ended last year, and now this one, the A123. starting out like this is the direction that they need to continue down. This is like where they need to go. So keep going down this road. Let's get the last sip, guys. Cheers. See, this one is kind of like evolving for me. You know, it was kind of spicy on like the first sip, not as spicy on the second, not near as spicy on the third. And it's kind of brought forth a little more of a darker kind of note to it. Still sweet, but there's more of like a darker kind of note on this one. Again, there's some brown sugars. There's some of that, you know, vanilla sweetness up at the front. I'm not getting any of that like butterscotch note that I was getting on the nose, and not necessarily getting like a dusty note on this one. I did pick up like a little hint of like an older kind of oak, like a dusty oak on the nose. Not really getting that, but this isn't a sweet oak profile. This definitely has some like an older oak profile on this one. Again, the spices kind of died down. There's definitely some brown sugars, like I said, some vanilla, definitely some nuttiness there across the center of the palate. Some of that older oak, some pepper in the back. This is a really good batch. Again, if they can kind of maintain this consistency from that C922 to this A123 and then continue down, you know, into the B batch this way, man, you're talking about 3 hitters back to back to back, because last release of C922 was a hitter. This bottle right here is an absolute hitter. This is a fantastic bottle of Elijah Craig. This A123 is no joke. Very, very good. Very kind of off profile for an A batch for me. Even just, you know, in general. Definitely had some interesting notes on this one, but really enjoyed it. This is a direction they need to go down. Fantastic stuff here again, guys, from Elijah Craig. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. Guys, this A123 is a must-buy, in my opinion. I think this offers a ton of flavor. There's a lot of depth on this one, which, you know, honestly, like, you know, you go across some of these Elijah Craig batches, there's a lot of great flavors, right? There's a lot of these big, bold flavors, some savory flavors, but, you know, there's not ever one that's like consistently evolving like this one is for me. So this one kind of like consistently evolved from sip to sip to sip. You technically you don't really get that with Elijah Craig. Again, you get those big bold flavors, some of that spice, those savory kind of notes, and then it kind of maintains. But this one kind of changed it up a little bit, but in a good way. I actually like that. I think they did a damn good job with this one. Again, great proof point on it. Great nose on this one. Very, very sweet. And then on the profile, kind of switched it up a little bit. Went a little darker for an A batch. But regardless, to say this is a must buy in my opinion. I will be trying to find it back up to you know, enjoy after this one, because I feel it's going to go rather quickly, guys. So if you're looking for more reviews like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button, bell notification to be alerted of any upcoming reviews or live streams. You can also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. Until next time, guys, stay dusty.